is it even really about that other person?
Yeah.
Or is it what that relationship represented?
And how
what
it
you
felt to
want?
be in connection
Yes.
versus not, or, there's a lot of other things that could be available if we don't react right away. Like, ooh, let's make this feeling go away.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy.
I'm one of your hosts, Keely Helmick,
I'm Melisa Seguirant.
and I will introduce myself really briefly. I'm trying to get down to really brief. Keely Helmick, licensed professional counselor, co-owner of Connective Therapy Collective. My pronouns are they, them, she. I am a queer sex therapist. I am white, gender fluid, gender queer, non-binary, queer solo person.
How about that for a
There we go.
an introduction?
Was that brief enough?
I am Melissa. I am a white bisexual polyamorous person. Genders TBD. We're working on it. You can use any pronouns right now. But I think I'm discovering maybe more not so cis. Not so cis. That's my gender. Just
Well,
not
I was
cis.
trying to get her to record at the very beginning. She's like, I can't not face my queerness when we're on this podcast.
I can be pleasantly oblivious sometimes. And then we sit down and I'm like, oh no, okay, here we go. Yep.
All the feelings, which really brings us, we're going to chat for a minute, but I think part of this episode and why we started talking about this is because it is the motherfucking holidays and there are all the feelings going on.
Old feelings resurfacing, coming back up.
Yes. The exes.
The exes. We're here to talk about exes.
We're here to talk about exes. So people have been contacting me. People have been contacting my roommates. So it's not just the queers. Now my roommate's straight. So I got confirmation it's just not the queers because 3 of my roommates' friends have also had the exes contacting them that past week.
Yeah.
Coming from everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So now we're like, okay, let's talk about what this looks like for us and how do we support people through this?
Yeah. Yeah. How do we deal when we're contacted? As we're saying this, I'm like, ooh, I reached out. I did it.
You did it.
It wasn't in a, hey, let's process our relationship, but it was like, ooh, I feel like I want to reach out. Let me send you a funny meme,
And we're not here to shame the reaching out. I'm not here to shame you. It's more, what is this really about? What are some boundaries? What are some boundaries part 2?
Yeah.
Some strategies, and really recognizing what to do with this, what to do with the feelings, what to do with the thoughts, and how to really be aware within our bodies what we're feeling when this is happening.
Yeah.
And make really informed, intentional decisions.
It's the mindfulness thing. It's how do we just give ourselves a little pause to check in and be able to, as you said, be intentional, be responding maybe to feelings without being reactive.
Yes, responding instead of reacting.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
We pause. we take a breath. We have to acknowledge, we have to be able to see the feeling to even do anything beyond that. We have to be like, whoa, I'm having a feeling.
Yeah, I think, and so recognizing what happens in our body when we get that phone call or text is the first start. So I saw a text and my stomach hurt and I felt very fluttery and wanted to vomit and run. So to me, if that's the feeling I'm having, I pause and I definitely do not text anything back. And then you have to look through the process and think, how do I want to respond to this? And another piece to this that you and I were talking about was from a poly dynamic. Even if we're poly, we don't have to remain friends with everyone.
Right.
Or this pressure that because I'm poly, my current other partner or partners don't navigate how I interact with exes.
Yeah. And finding closure, it's just interesting. It's just more detailed, I guess, in a poly dynamic based on that, based on, we've talked about the community being small. So if you don't want to be friends, then how do you navigate being in the same circles?
Yeah.
And that may or may not change how you respond to getting a text message. But even, I mean, gosh, even from a monogamous standpoint, I was saying this before that there were certain exes that I really didn't have any contact with after the relationship. And some of that was dictated by my monogamous relationship status.
Yeah. So I think that when we're navigating this, we're clarifying, not that people that are monogamous can look at it in a poly way, but that there are these different expectations from monogamous and non-monogamous folks. And there's a lot less expectations in some ways from the non-monogamous, or it's like you're almost I'm trying to figure out how to say this because I go in between. I've been in monogamous relationships, I've been non-monogamous relationships, so have you. And it's so glaringly different being solo or single or non-monogamous and being monogamous.
Yeah.
Because almost like in monogamy, you're forced or told what to do.
You can be. I mean, that's for me. I'm like, I'd like to see some healthy representations of monogamy where that's not, and we've interviewed, right? Some people, that's not the case, but I definitely
think they're monogamous. No, there was a couple that's monogamous.
Yeah. But I've definitely had that relationship dynamic and I've felt that way as a monogamous person. So I don't want to just put it on like people I've dated.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's this, for me, it comes to this possessive, insecure. I need you not to talk to anybody that you dated, no funny business. And really, what is that? It's my own insecurity and my attachment stuff. And it's also a lack of trust in the relationship.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that has to be the case, but it has been a dynamic in most of my monogamous relationships. So yes, that does seem to happen in monogamy. Not that it doesn't happen in non-monogamy.
No,
but it's just, it does feel different.
Okay, so if we start from the beginning, which we are now, I mean, driving to work today, I was thinking we are in the thick of holiday season. It's like real now. So all the texts were coming in the past week or so. So first things first, what do you do when you get the text? You pause, breathe,
maybe take a walk.
Do text.
Yeah, right. Take some friends.
Oh
my
God, you could not believe the dude just texted me. Guess who just called me?
Yeah, right. And this is something that I do myself and I do with clients with any kind of decision making. Like once you pause, okay, if your decision is I'm either going to respond or not, for example. Okay, let's pretend like you're going to respond. How do you feel about that? What feelings comes up from that? What would you want to say and what feelings come up from that? How about the reverse? If you don't respond, how does that feel?
Yeah.
And it's like really trying out these options in your system from a somatic perspective before, again, you make a decision.
And I say, don't respond for at least, I mean, I used to try to wait hours. Wonder who's listening right now. They're like, I would say at least 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because when we are feeling, if getting a text or a phone call, and you ignored the phone call, I guess, you get, or an email from an ex, and you notice a reaction, when we have strong feelings in our bodies, they will subside between 15 and 20 minutes.
Sure.
That's mindfulness research.
Yeah.
Now you can keep stoking the fire and keep the feelings going. But if you're mindful of that emotion and then you go for a walk or do all the things that we just suggested,
you don't attach to the emotion. You let it just kind of flow on.
15 to 20 minutes is kind of gone down.
Yeah.
So then you have your brain is a little more online.
Right. The amygdala is like taking a little chill pill, and the prefrontal cortex that does all of our, critical thinking, reasoning, logic, that comes back online. And then we can find that wise mind in between spot where they, where does the emotional mind and the rational mind meet? Straight up TBT, but I love that model.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and we're also saying like feelings are coming up. And it's okay to feel these feelings. So we're talking that first strategy is about if you're the person receiving it.
Right. Or if you have the impulse to reach out, you could do
Same
the same strategies and like, oh man, I really want to send this. And I've done this because I have like memes that I'll send to my ex-husband, especially, but exes. And for me, I don't want to get into such a place that I'm like really trying to manipulate and play the game of how long do I wait and send. But at the same time, if I respond every time I have an impulse, I'm going to be blowing up these people's like social medias in a way that I don't want to have that kind of a relationship with any of these. I don't want to be that close. So yeah, you could do the same thing. Take a pause. Ooh, what am I feeling? Am I feeling I need to be seen? Is it a part of me that's like missing connection that I just need to be connected again? Like what's going on for me? And how do I want to address that?
Yeah. And thinking about what it is you want from it. There's so many little quotes and memes and things that are talking about this right now. And one of the things is you can miss somebody and you still don't have to text them.
Right.
Or they can miss you and they still don't have to text you. And what is the work around it? And this looks different too for people that have been broken, like separated for weeks, months, years. The strategy can be the same, but it does look a different way too, because recognizing what am I going to get out of it?
Right.
If I respond to this person or if I reach out to this person, what am I looking for? What am I wanting? And I think the difference is if it's a recent breakup, is it, I mean, you might be getting back together, or is it that you're still in a lot of grief and you haven't moved through it? Are you wanting to be a friend?
When we have that emotional response, we're responding to our own experience.
Yes.
We don't know the experience of the person on the other
We
end.
don't know why they're reaching out.
And then if we're the ones wanting to reach out, like take some time, number one, to know what you want, but also to understand that what you want may not be available. Like, think about where the other person is, not to say that should dictate our behavior, but there is this room for being empathetic, or at least aware that our experience is not the only experience.
Yeah.
So just because I want to reach out and I need this and I've done all my work and I really decide, yes, this is right for me, it may be still incredibly invasive to my ex who may be in a completely different place. And how do I then hold space for them to be like, nope, not interested.
Yeah. And that's the boundaries piece that we're talking about, is recognizing that we want to honor someone else's boundaries. If we're the ones, if I'm the one wanting to reach out, stepping back, why do I want to reach out? What is my intent? And then, wait a minute, I don't know where they're at.
Right. That person may not respond, and that is okay. That is within their right.
Yeah.
Their job is not to take care of my needs or wants. Let's frame those as wants in this case, especially. And I don't want to say that to say like, don't reach out, but maybe don't do so in a way that's manipulative or that assumes one sort of response.
I suggest to people to have some kind of separate journal or notebook, or even you can even just use the notes, in the notes app in your phone. When you have that urge to reach out, what happens if you just write it instead? Write it in a notebook, write it in a journal, type it up in your phone. And what happens if you don't send it to the person? Because like you said, it really is about you.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to reach out, it's about you.
I think it's a great practice, and it gives you time to do the action in a way, but that's in a safe container and that lets you process like, okay, what's even like with the example I gave earlier of like funny memes, like there is the amount of time that I am on social media looking at funny memes. Like, yeah, I think about people all the time. And one strategy for me could be creating the folder where like, hey, these are the memes I think so-and-so would be funny. And then I put them in the folder and I don't send them every single day, and maybe then I decide, okay, let's look through this folder and here's the one I really, but making sure that we're taking ownership of our own process and not making somebody else's job to help us in our process.
Yeah. also taking time to look at what's going on with you beyond the urge to reach out to an ex or the urge to respond to an ex, is looking at what is going on in this time and what's really coming up. So I think there's this sentimentality piece. And then also, like we talked about in a previous episode, which we're all confronting as queer folks, is what's going on with our own family. And so is it that we're reaching out because we want to connect with our ex-partner, or are we reaching out because last year we had a person and if you don't have that connection with your family and your ex was your family, then what can you do to nurture that sadness, that grief that's coming up?
Yeah.
Because I don't know when you think about that, when you think about the dynamic of this time of year, it feels shoved down our throats.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying, because it's getting, it's like that image that people use for mental health all the time about the iceberg and how some of the emotions are right at the surface or above. And then there's this whole well of stuff underneath. And that's kind of, what I hear you saying, that the impulse to reach out, maybe like above, that might be like the tip of the iceberg you can see, but below it is like grief, all these other things that may not even be about that relationship. It may just be general.
Is it even really about that other person?
Yeah.
Or is it what that relationship represented?
And how it felt to be in connection versus not, or, there's a lot of other things that could be available if we don't react right away. Like, ooh, let's make this feeling go away,
Yeah. And all this family stuff gets kicked up again.
Yeah.
The attachment stuff. And then also it's cold outside. I mean, let's be real. Like people, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people just want to have someone to be at home with and cuddle with.
Yeah.
And our dogs and cats only get us so far in the cuddling department.
It's true. They have boundaries too. I have hit them. Whoops.
Oopsie. Yeah. I love when my roommate's holding the cat so hard. And the way the animals set boundaries is we don't pay attention to it, is they'll dart their heads away. Like they make it very clear when they're like, stop holding me.
No,
Leave me the fuck alone. And you're like, oh, what? Cuddles.
Yeah. Like, no, respect their boundaries too. Yeah.
And let's be real. Cats pay way more attention to us when we ignore them.
Yes, it's true.
Or when we're doing something else.
When I'm on my computer trying to write notes.
But isn't that like an ex?
Yeah. I'm like, that's probably like me.
Like, when you're not paying attention, or like you finally have that moment where you're like so absorbed in something else. You haven't thought about your ex in however long. And then you're like,
yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, for sure. The other
queer ex is like a cat.
Yeah, queer exes are like cats. That's the takeaway. No, I was going to switch gears a little bit, and not to something that you would have more experience with than me, but also thinking about when there is a relationship with an ex, co-parenting, for example.
Oh, yeah.
There are folks who are in contact with their exes, regardless of how that emotional relationship is. And I've worked with people who have a very friendly, amicable relationship with exes and co-parent kind of seamlessly, amazingly, and others where it's super duper challenged. So and especially holidays, custody arrangements, like all of that, I've noticed in a lot of sessions coming up as being really big stressors. So it's not a question of, do I reach out to my ex or not, but it's, how do I set boundaries when I need to? How do I advocate for myself? I don't have any of those answers. I know that is a thing.
We want to represent all the parents out there.
Yeah.
So first off, I do have experience both personally, but then also working with clients for many years. And I am really fortunate. So that's, I do start with that I text regularly. Like some of my kids' friends' parents are like, wait, you still talk to their dad? And I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I think it also helps, like, let's be real. And he has said this many times, like, I'm super gay. I've always been gay. I identified as bi when we first got together. And so like, there's not the same, or he expresses not having the same hard feelings as other couples do. But for those that don't have that kind of relationship and even so, it can be trying at times. I think, first of all, obviously, like just with everything we're talking about, is having that awareness from the beginning, but then starting with ourselves, validating if feelings are coming up, that's real. Even if you have been separated for years, if you're having feelings that come up, that's okay. And being aware, like you said earlier, really checking ourselves to not use the children in manipulative ways. And so, and putting the children in this sense, we talk about ourselves and like checking with ourselves, but really putting the kids' best interests at heart. Like if it becomes a conversation about a holiday, and maybe either maybe you didn't do a formal parent agreement. Like a lot of people don't do formal law agreements because the laws aren't always supportive, especially of queer folks and trans and non-binary folks. So if you don't have this formal agreement to go back to, it's having a conversation about what's best for the kids.
Right.
What do the kids want?
Yeah.
And we have to put our own with parents. I'm like, be in your feelings. But with kids, you're like, oh, I got to put my feelings aside for a little bit or have my feelings with other feelings. One of my children was like, can we trade holidays? I know you have us this day. And I was like, at first I could feel myself reacting. And I was like, what? I mean, I don't really like Christmas, but you don't want to do anything on Christmas? Yeah. But then I checked myself. And when I was curious, I realized that the reason why is because her other parent is changing houses. And the house that he was living in with the kids, which is his Nana's who just passed away, died recently. It's that house. They want one more Christmas at that house. It wasn't about me. It was about what they want. So we arranged and I said, okay, we made an arrangement and we talked about it. But the piece is that, yes, there's emotions. Yes, we have our own reactions. When we pause and then reflect and think about it from our children's perspective and what's best for them and continue to have support and our whole lives that aren't our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And support for your feelings. Like, we do that as therapists where like, we'll have a feeling in the moment and then we're literally trained to be like, oh, check that, put that right there. And I'll come back to it after session, but then come back to it.
Yeah.
Don't just check it and like repress it and like, okay, I don't have a feeling. No, like get it off the shelf, look at it, talk to your friends, like, do your own therapy.
Yeah, I think all of this comes back to, and that's what's hard is we're talking about how do you set boundaries, but also still have your emotions. Where is the space that you're having these emotions, but not reacting to these emotions?
Yeah. The slowing down, as we've said, the breathing, think about grounding, like just pay attention to what happens in your body when you're triggered in general. For me specifically, and I know for a lot of my clients, it turns out to like locking out the legs and getting really tense in the body. So if we can literally bend your knees, drop down a little bit, like recenter under yourself, feel the back, the small of your back if you're sitting down in the chair. Those kind of things take me literally back in my own body versus like this like urge, like responding that's like literally coming out. I'm like trying to jump out of my own body to like resolve an emotion.
Oh, yes.
Versus like, no, sit back, feel it, which is really painful, but we can feel emotions, even strong ones. And then, then journal. What do you have to do to like let those feelings live somewhere?
Yeah. I was also just thinking about how we hold all of these things and just notice it and be curious about it. And it's okay.
And it's okay. It's like, even if we react, even if we go against what we've said and we react, right? Like, let's have some grace as well.
Or you just hook up with the next whatever.
Yeah, like
I'm not saying I did that, but whatever.
It happens.
Of course it happens.
So many clients are like, God, sex is so much better now that we're not. Like,
that's a whole
other. Yeah. But like, yeah, if you, if all else kind of fails, you just react. You get to reevaluate and decide what you want to do going from there. Like, it's okay. Let's have some grace. We are human. It happens. And that's okay. And if you decide that you don't like what happened and you would rather do things differently next time, then okay. Like, we get to unpack that and maybe have some new strategies in place.
And I think I was just reading something that's really lovely. And I do like to think about how this season, how we reflect on this time of year as what culturally tells us, which is like capitalism. And when we're in nature and when we reflect on animals and nature, what they do, what happens on Mother Earth during this season. And we're really pulled to be in a different way than what nature intends us to do right now. So nature intends us to like buckle down, hibernate, gather and slow down, rest more and be more in our bodies.
Conserve,
Conservation. And yet capitalism drives us to do something completely different. We're all moving, we're going fast. We feel like we have to connect and talk to every person. We have to buy those presents and do those activities and socialize so much. When we try to reach out, when an ex tries to reach out to us or we try to reach out to an ex, how is that almost like we're looking to anchor to, like, they used to be our person. Are we wanting to have that anchor because everything kind of gets chaotic at this time?
Like, what's the thing that I know?
Yes.
Let's go back to that so everything else can feel okay or stable.
Yeah, because we're trying to pressure ourselves to be a certain way during this time. And so if we do slow down, we do hibernate, or, as we're saying, you just like pause and think about it. The thing is, we can take more time and maybe we just respond later. Or maybe what if we don't text or reach out till after the holidays?
Yeah, right.
Why don't we just sink into our feelings and journal a little bit? And if we have feelings of wanting to connect with an ex, we spend some time with that relationship and our feelings that are connected to the relationship, but don't actually reach out to that person.
Yeah. Wait on it and see what happens next. Your feelings may change. They may not, but you'll know. You'll have the space to know how things are evolving.
So is that what we're saying? It's like pause and wait.
Yeah. It's like,
hibernate on it.
Hang on. I tell people this again,
Hibernate on it.
right? Just about decision making. When clients come in and they're like, I'm so conflicted, sometimes that through just talking about it, that conflict can kind of be resolved and people walk away like, okay, I'm clear on like what I want to do. But more often than not, I'm telling people like, this is probably not the time to decide. So wait and hold that tension of opposites and those two opposing things you want to do, wait and see what other option emerges.
All right.
So just wait.
Just wait.
Wait.
And last thing, do we block?
Oh, that is a good question. Yeah. Do we block people? I tried to, as we first surfaced this question, think about like, what do I do? But it's been different for every relationship. The only time I have blocked someone on social media, like they can't find me, is when I felt there were inappropriate gestures towards me. Like this was more a long time ago, but in the context of monogamy, when my ex was in a monogamous relationship and reaching out to me in a sexual way or I really miss you. And it felt so disrespectful to the relationship they were in, not what I wanted. That's when I was like, I'm just going to take if I'm a trigger for you, you're not going to get triggered anymore because you're not going to be able to find me. I'm gone.
Okay. So we have some options. First and foremost, with any kind of decision, we're saying pause. I'm saying hibernate on it. I'm saying wait until after the holidays, but even if you can pause for like 20 minutes, think about your intentions, think about other people. If you're dealing with your ex, who's also the other parent of your child or children, really being conscientious of how you approach that and thinking about the kids, not just the ex. And yeah, blocking is an option.
Yeah. And even if it's not blocking that way, it may be blocking yourself from the cues, getting rid of pictures on your phone. Holidays can be hard again with music. I mean, music in general can be hard because it just so much emotion and memory. But holiday music for some people triggers certain things and remembering past relationships. So as much as you can, be mindful of like what triggers those feelings for you. And maybe if you can avoid or minimize them, great.
Yeah. And if you do have a strained relationship with your family and you find yourself reaching out to your ex because they're the one that understands, like be kind to yourself, show self-compassion that's a normal response to want to reach out to them. And are they actually available for that support right now? Or is it that you're just looking for that? And are there ways that you can feel that connection? Are there other people that you can reach out to when you're feeling that desire for connection?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is just like, it just really sucks.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes you need to just grieve.
And it just sucks.
Like, let's not avoid grief. It doesn't help. It doesn't help us
And
process.
Yes. And even if you felt like you were over it or that you've been quote unquote moving on or whatever that means, it is normal to have grief resurface, sadness resurface during the holidays. Yeah. So.
But there's another side.
There is.
True.
And maybe that's what we talk about sometimes in our season 2 next year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Shifting to queer joy.
Yeah. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Do you have a queer joy?
I was trying to think. It feels very similar to what I've said before, but I don't care. I'm just going to say, I went out dancing this weekend and it was so marvelous. I was out at Slay and it's this super queer space with this awesome DJs. And I do feel my age.
In this space or as a result of dancing?
Maybe both. But I will say, like, there's such this beautiful expression and freedom on the dance floor. And just to be walking in, it's just so queer. It just feels so good. And all this like holiday crap that we're talking about just kind of goes away. And I was with a group of queers as well. I brought like 4 other friends with me. And so that was really awesome. And yeah, again, I know I keep saying this, and listeners, if you just want me to shut up, please like not text me, DM me. Be like, you can talk about being solo. Yes. But it was the first time I've been out dancing solo. So everything is like this new experience as a solo person. Mm-hmm. And some of it's great. And some of it brings up emotions and doing all that.
It's like queer joy and queer embodiment you're talking about with being in it, like a safe space to dance as a queer person surrounded by other, it's great.
And oh my gosh, because it was so queer, so gay. I ran into my best friend's ex-wife, who I haven't seen in 6 years. And the joy was seeing her. Mm-hmm. And I felt really funny because I was with the masks. I didn't realize, and I was kind of checking her out. And then I was like, oh shit.
Wait, checking out.
Wait, that's the ex. What? But it was a really serendipitous, beautiful thing to run into this person. Mm-hmm. And not having seen them forever and now seeing them in this like fun space. And yeah. And yes, Portland is very good about masking. We were all masked.
Amazing.
It's really cool. Yeah. So what's your queer joy of the week?
I laugh because I know we've said this on a few episodes. We're like, it's not queer because it's stereotypically queer. It's queer joy just because you're a queer person.
Yes.
But I feel like mine are all stereotypical. Like, yeah, cats and plants and RuPaul's Drag Race.
Crystals.
No, well, that's always been. It's always been. No, it's TikTok. I found TikTok. I knew it was like years ago. I was like, oh, that's a bad idea for me. I should especially when Instagram started infiltrating the Instagram space.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I could get lost in there. And I did. I did. And it was, if you don't think that TikTok is a queer experience, it just looks very different than mine. You should see what I was watching.
It's like what the
Oh my God.
so queer, so gay.
Yeah. So,
lesbian.
oh my goodness. And like the whole gender queer, gender fluid. I'm like, maybe there's a reason I was avoiding this. I wasn't ready to go there yet. And now we are. So welcome to the ride of my identity. It was great. I'm not mad at TikTok, but I do need to find some boundaries when it's in my life.
Melissa,
Yes.
when you have the urge to get on TikTok, breathe
Take a breath.
and pause for 15
These alternate spaces to go to instead. Oh man. But there's not enough queer representation in other spaces. There's just so
Totally.
much, So yeah, it was great. I had a wonderful weekend on TikTok.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks to y'all again for listening today. Thanks for following us on connectivetherapycollective.com, Instagram, all the platforms. And I hope you all have a wonderful, queer, and joyful week.
Thanks for listening to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy, a podcast by the Connective Therapy Collective, hosted by Keely Helmick and Melisa de Seguirant, with audio edited and produced by me, Cardinal Marking. Music is by Bad Snacks, Otis McDonald, and of Shane. Sound effects from Freesound. If this episode made you smile or think, tell us about it. If you hated it, tell us about that. Review us on iTunes or send us an email at info@connectivetherapycollective.com. For more queer joy, visit our website at www.connectivetherapycollective.com. Love ya. Bye.